This is the fresh out of the oven with the baker's dozen. Watch a rapper turn to nothing at the hands of rubbish. A couple crutching with the bait still can't catch us. And it's just my luck that my year of coming up, I still been raising a tear up above. Weak-minded politicking with some pretty women and a dozen to get daddy begging for the plays on Insta. Before you talk all your shit, do your research. Before you get a feature, better change your t-shirt. Close sister in town, cause you been feeling blue. I've been doing me, so what does it matter to you? Never gave a fuck, money I was saving up. Trying to make it out the city, I done been brave enough. Chasing blunts with money schemes and honey dreams. Enough to turn waves of energy to symmetry. And play it through your speakers just to resonate within. And accurately display the life of every kid who suffer steady here, but still yet they live in an environment and see life for what it is. Still I persist, never backing down from anything. Fate is in my left and my right holds the mic. The key to octaves below where my soul exists. Trapped in this lower end.
Well, howdy there, internet people. It's Beau again. No, wait. This is Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. And my name's Jake. And if you've been watching before, you know what that means. We have a correction, and I'd also like to offer, separately from that, an apology. Let's start with the apology. To the young lady who advised me earlier, as a first-timer, not to do the full 20 minutes in a tanning booth, you were quite correct. Fair enough. But the show must go on. I assure you, the pink face is not in effect. I am genuinely just an idiot. Got a correction to make. Nothing wrong with being wrong as long as you own up to it. Yesterday, I implied something I did not mean to. In a video, I said, I was talking about the House I was talking about the House committees that would form in reaction to the January 6th committee, and I said that they would interfere with Justice Department investigations. I do stand by that, but not what it implies, because a couple of people said in the comments, hey, the House doesn't have the ability to stop an investigation. Those are separate branches of government. Quite correct. And I should have clarified us then, so I shall now. They won't. You're right. They won't have the ability to flip the off switch to an investigation. What they will be able to do is subpoena the investigators. They will be able to use their powers as they form committees, such as the new oversight committee that it looks like is forming, which is going to have broad scope in their investigations and so-called investigations, and they will use that to gum up the works. And as we say often on this channel, cover-ups happen in America with the key element being time passing. So do be on the lookout for that. It is an issue. But I do want to be clear. It's true. They can't simply wave a wand and make them disappear. Speaking of Beau of the Fifth Column, we talked yesterday about Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel reviving the investigation of the fake electors from Michigan. Beau of the Fifth Column, somebody who I think has fantastic insight, talked about it today and got me thinking about how we could take this further. So let's get right to it. Here is Beau of the Fifth Column. Link in the description if you haven't seen him before. He's a fantastic RedTuber. Talking about the Michigan Attorney General investigation into the fake electors plot. I should give you the background. So initially, when a group of Michiganders calling themselves electors, they were in no way the electors from Michigan, tried to break into the state capitol, AG Nessel was looking into charges. She suspended that investigation to make way for the federal investigation. But on Friday of last week, she announced she is resuming that investigation because she is sick of waiting.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So
Ooh,
today
that's
we are
loud.
going to talk about Michigan and Attorney General up there, Dana Nessel, and her plans to proceed. Because, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but it seems like she got tired of waiting. In Michigan, there are a number of allegations surrounding people who may have participated in the electors plot, how it's, come to be known. The Attorney General submitted kind of a referral for federal prosecution. It's been like a year. And there hasn't been any public movement on it. So she has decided to reopen the investigation and move forward with it.
One important thing that I don't believe he mentions in this video that I would really like you to take note of. One of the key things she cited in her interview given last Friday was in the reasoning for why she reopened this investigation was having to answer to her constituents, having to explain to them why no charges had been sought, even though their votes were the ones at risk. Michiganders' votes would have been rendered irrelevant if this had succeeded. She talks specifically about, and I should have highlighted it, I didn't at the time. She talks specifically about having to answer to her constituents. That is why there is so often a link in the description for the Department of Justice. In this case, if you are from a state that had a fake electors plot, which many did, essentially, if you are from a purple state, contact your attorney general. Get their email, write them an email, say you want the same thing done in your state because your vote matters.
There are complaints from the GOP up there basically saying that it's a political stunt and that the people really shouldn't want somebody who's going to use tax dollars to constantly go after their political enemies. That's how they're trying to frame it. I don't know that framing is accurate or that it's going to hold for very long. Some of the quotes coming out of the Attorney General's office really makes it seem like they're headed to a charging decision like now. They're saying they're reopening the investigation, but some interesting quotes include, "There is clear evidence to support charges against those 16 false electors." That's straight from the Attorney General. That's from Nessel.
Yes, it is.
I don't think that this is going to be a political show. I think that this is an Attorney General at the state level who doesn't want to wait anymore, who isn't willing to see what Garland is up to.
Okay, so I have the sense I have from Attorney General Dana Nessel is because it was my job to cover what she did for a while. I got to give credit to Beau here. He is 100% correct. With the few headlines he's had to work with, he has made a very accurate assessment of this person. Dana Nessel really doesn't mess around. As we mentioned before, she is the one who got actual serious charges filed, and seen through in a court of law against the Wolverine Watchmen. She is an incredibly effective attorney general, and yeah, she really does not put up with GOP nonsense. On top of that, a little more context I can add to this. Michigan has a particularly clownish Republican Party. Michonne Maddock has just scandal after scandal, the kind of thing that would have ended a politician every other week in any other era. We have RAPE allegations. We have assault allegations amongst the Michigan GOP. So the likelihood of her being slowed down by their antics is next to none. So more credit to Beau. He got it right, in my opinion.
And plans to proceed pretty quickly. I have a feeling that the kind of flippant response from the GOP up there is going to come back to bite them. It doesn't appear that they're taking it seriously. And based on some of the public statements from the Attorney General's office and the information coming out, I don't think that this is a political thing. It certainly appears that they plan on moving forward with charges very quickly.
I hope so.
And in Michigan, there are charges that kind of directly address this sort of thing. There are laws on the books about kind of what happened. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that this will move forward pretty quickly.
So, very few notes to add. He wraps it up. Link is in the description if you want to check out the full video. There's about another minute of it. He does very quick videos, so he's worth checking out. I have to give Beau of the Fifth Column a lot of credit here. He's on the other side of the country, and he has basically nailed the political situation in Michigan. I do want to stress, though, that when she put the case down to begin with and turned it over to the federal investigators, that received very little backlash, and I felt at the time that it should have, because I had never seen federal investigators in my life hold a president or a former president accountable for anything, and I still have not. So I would encourage you, if you are in a state where there was an attempt to get fake electors submitted, I think there were 6, 11, the number escapes me. There were multiple states where full-on fraudulent documents were drawn up. If you are from one of those states, tell your attorney general, say, the folks over in Michigan can do this. Why can't you? Why doesn't my vote matter to you? Phrase it like that, you'll have their attention. And you should get their attention, because if they think you're not watching them, they will try not to do their jobs. It's sad, but it's the reality we live in. We can change that, but not if we do nothing. So if you're in a swing state, if you're in a fake elector state, contact your AG. You may remember that on January 8th, Brazil had its January 6th. Time zones are funny like that. No, they had a almost identical version to what happened in the U.S. on January 6th, 2021. A far-right authoritarian was elected out of office, replaced by a okay, Biden's not a left-winger, but somebody left of them, at least. Their response was to hire Steve Bannon, hire Stephen Miller. That's right, Bolsonaro was apparently advised by both of these people. Again, we must investigate them. Now we have new charges to investigate them for. And of course, to spread election lies, and then his supporters stormed their government buildings. They literally had a guy in a shaman hat. Bizarre. Well, it looks like Brazil is taking it more seriously than the United States has. On day one, my understanding is they made 400 arrests. How long did it take the U.S. to make any arrests at all? Admittedly, the transition had already happened at this point. Credit where it's due. We had apparently the person who was orchestrating our coup still in government at the time. That is called a self-coup. Fortunately, it was at least a partial failure. We will see if the Justice Department decides it wants to pursue justice for the American people or not. However, with Brazil taking this more seriously, that also means Bolsonaro has reason to be afraid to return to his country. He, just like in January 6th, the far-right, unpatriotic former leader traveled to Florida. Very real possibility that he might be extradited to Brazil to face charges. However, he appears to have had stomach pains and is in the hospital. If you hear that just dripping with suspicion, it's because it is. Nonetheless, he's an older fella. He's been eating food in Florida. Sorry to rip on you, Florida. You did very well with Maxwell Frost. Perhaps he genuinely is sick. Here
Developing this hour, the former president of Brazil has been
MSNBC.
admitted to the hospital for abdominal pain, according to his wife. It comes as here in Washington. You've got the vice president, Kamala Harris, in just about 35 minutes or so, expected to swear in the new U.S. ambassador to Brazil any minute. All eyes on what, if anything, she says about the violent and extraordinary attack on the Brazilian government and how the administration plans to respond. In Brazil, you've got the capital now occupied by federal forces. A regional governor suspended, hundreds of people arrested after what you see on your screen here. The storming of government buildings on Sunday by Bolsonaro supporters, capping months of far-right protests over false election conspiracy theories. Sound familiar? It did to President Biden, who's condemning this January 6th style attack in a joint statement with the leaders of Mexico and Canada. It's possible he could face pressure to do more, with lawmakers today calling on President Biden to extradite Bolsonaro back to Brazil. The former president's believed to be in Florida on a special visa reserved for heads of state. Joining us now is NBC's Mike Memoli, who is traveling with the president in Mexico. Guad Venegas is joining us in Miami. And Mike, there are some threads here, right, linking the U.S. to what's going on in Brazil. You have Bolsonaro, believed to be like outside Orlando, essentially. The influence of far-right figures that we know domestically, people like Steve Bannon, et cetera, on politics in Brazil. Give us the White House view on what we should expect to see as this moves forward.
Well, Hal, you have some discrete issues in the here and now, especially involving this visa issue, potential extradition, that the White House is, for the most part, at least putting these questions off. For instance, Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, telling reporters here in Mexico City earlier today that he expects that President Biden will speak with President Lula, that the U.S. stands ready to do whatever it can to help President Lula and, shore up democratic institutions. They said they believe those democratic institutions in Brazil remain strong. We heard just in the last hour from the State Department briefing a confirmation that, yes, former President Bolsonaro is here in the U.S. on that special visa reserved for heads of government, and that, as they laid it out, there's a process in place for individuals who come here with one visa, having about 30 days, for instance, to request either a different immigration status or to leave the country. So those are some of the more sort of granular issues that the White House will have to confront.
Okay, a couple of things. Bolsonaro is not the head of a government. That's sort of what January 8th was all about. I understand why why Biden's underling gave a non-committal response. He might not have permission. He might not want to speak for the president. Where I disagree with this is that the president, knowing what we are dealing with here, should have made the decision faster than Lula about what he was going to do about it. Our president. There should be no question at all as to what we're going to do with Bolsonaro. He should have included specifically the words, including extradition. We will help in any way we can, including extradition. Maybe the heads of state already understand this. The American people need to hear it. The American people need to see that he is capable of holding a far-right authoritarian responsible, of treating him like you would anybody else. This is a T-ball warm-up for Biden. Disappointing to see that he was so wishy-washy through this middleman.
But I think if you step back, this is an administration.
Admittedly, I am also sunburned and grumpy, so perhaps I'm going too hard.
As you know, Hallie, that's really focused very significantly. We saw just on Friday about these threats to democracy at home and abroad. The president has really guided his foreign policy about autocracies versus democracies and the importance of shoring up democracies around the world. It's important to note, too, that the White House was watching this Brazilian election very closely in the last year, both the initial election and then that runoff. President Biden placed a call very quickly to President-elect Lula at the time. Shortly after the results came in, he sent a delegation to Brasilia just in the last week to attend his inauguration. And a decade ago, when Biden was vice president, he traveled to Brazil multiple times, including meeting with Lula the last time he was president. So this is a relationship the White House has been particularly focused on, and you can expect that focus to continue here. I thought it was notable, Hallie, that we saw not just a statement from the president on the situation there, but a statement from the three leaders who will be gathering here for this North American Leaders Summit, the Mexican president as well as the Canadian Prime Minister.
Mike Mamale live for us there, traveling with the president. Guad, let me go to you. No word yet on the conversation between President Biden and President Lula, whether that's scheduled, whether it's happened, et cetera. Talk about where the investigation in Brasilia goes from here.
Before he gets into that, I just want to give Biden credit again, since I went pretty hard on him a moment ago. Yeah, I did really like that he included the other North American leaders in his response, acknowledging the fact, at least, that his business right now is with them. It's a small thing, but we have really strained our relationships of late, and so I'm pleased anytime the American president acts like a diplomat. That is, chief diplomat is sort of one of the hats they have to wear. So Biden did it well, in my opinion, there. A rare Biden compliment from your old pal, Jay.
Hallie, President Lula da Silva has informed that this investigation is underway as the military has regained control of the Capitol. The Minister of Justice spoke just about an hour ago, gave more details as to what happened, how the protesters were able to enter these buildings, the presidential palace, Congress, and, of course, the Supreme Court building. So it's going to take some time for them to find out. Now, Lula da Silva has also indicated that there could be financiers behind the individuals that arrived in this area. There's also been reports from reporters on the ground that buses were used to bus some of these protesters. So, of course, all of that is underway. And it's very important, as Mike was mentioning, to see the support that's coming from international leaders. We saw President Biden, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and Justin Trudeau in Mexico sending this joint statement. And also from around the world, the Secretary of the UN, the President of France, and other leaders have shown their support for Lula da Silva. Silva, very important as he goes on the first days of his presidency. He's only been the president for a few days when this happened, so it's very important for Brazil to move forward with the investigation and the full support from the international community. We will see more details being revealed as they continue making detentions. We know that as of last night, local authorities there said they had about 400 people arrested. Today, we know that more than 1,000 have been detained, and the military continues to still detain others after the Supreme Court ordered the military to disband any protest happening around the country supporting Bolsonaro, Hallie.
That is how you handle a situation like this. Get them. Blatant lawbreakers in your country, you get them. Baffles me that it's difficult for America to wrap their minds around that. Okay, so another important historical context note. Usually, when it comes to a Latin American country, I don't even know what the correct word would be for this, but a country like Brazil that is flirting with socialism, as they are with Lula here, who is a socialist. It's more common for the United States to be the one who is causing the havoc around election time. And it might be that characters in the United States, such as Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, had a hand in this too. But to have the American government officially supporting the good guys is a breath of fresh air and a sign of good things in our future. Further signs of good things in our future. Michigan Attorney General AG is turning that old states' rights yarn on its head. I don't like states' rights being shouted as an excuse for anything. But yeah, if the federal government fails to investigate, fails to take action when a crime has been committed against you, I would hope that your state backs you up, that your state sticks up for you. Delighted that Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel has reopened the investigation into the electors' plot. I have a feeling, knowing this lady, that the investigation was never totally dormant. I think she's known exactly what she's going to do for a while, and I'm delighted to see she's getting after it. Don't let this exist in isolation. This is a blueprint for what you can do in your state if your state ain't Michigan. If you are in a state that had fake electors, Google Google State Attorney General contact. Among the first results will be their contact page, which will have an email. Write them. Cite Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel and say that your vote matters too, because your vote does matter too. It's not okay that years have gone by. Your vote was endangered. Years have gone by without any justice for that, without any assurance that the next time you vote, it's going to be safe. In fact, you just voted in the same environment where your vote was nearly taken away from you, without the federal Department of Justice doing anything to protect it. So contact your state's Attorney General. Let him know you see him. It has a bigger effect than you may think. I'm going to go apply about a gallon of aloe vera to my face. This has been What You Can Do, also known as Wicked. My name is Beef Jerky. Also Jake.
Talk to me nice, ain't about winning, don't talk to me twice. I don't play dice, I'll make a move on the board, it's precise. The fuck is the price? I took a fiddle and dipped it in ice. I took a call and now I'm on a flight. Crew heading